Hi guys, and welcome to another one of my videos. Today I want to talk about Kingdom Come Deliverance 2 and all the controversy and stuff that's been going around lately regarding, there's now apparently woke elements and that sort of thing. And I just want to have a frank discussion regarding the issues and maybe help clarify some of the things that I've noticed and see what you guys think about it as well. First of all, this all came about from a rumor that Kingdom Come Deliverance 2 was going to be banned in Saudi Arabia because of an unskippable homosexual scene that they'd put in their new game. Apparently, it hasn't been banned yet. I don't know if it will be banned or what, but it hasn't actually been banned in Saudi Arabia. And apparently, the homosexual scene is skippable, according to Daniel Vavra and one of his tweets that I read. So, that's the one thing. So first of all, before I even get into it any further, I actually wasn't sure what to think of this whole situation. Initially, the kind of articles that I'd come across from mainstream game journalists left me with an impression that it was completely blown out of proportion. It was some hateful smear campaign against Kingdom Come Deliverance 2 and completely unjustified, etc., etc. So let's just talk about it. Let's first deal with the homosexual scene, or what now has been clarified as actually a same-sex romance that you can optionally encounter as the main character, as Henry. So that is quite a thing to tackle, because I personally am not opposed to homosexual options in role-playing games. If it's not forced upon you and it's something you can choose, I think it can be fun to explore and that sort of thing. It would make more sense in a game where there's a blank character creator sort of thing, where you're not playing as a predetermined character that already has an identity and a sexual orientation that was already predetermined in the first game. So I think that is part of the problem. There wasn't that sort of thing offered to the player in the first game, but now it's offered. So I don't know if they're just trying to do that to appeal to a wider audience to increase the sales, or what the thinking was behind it. I'm not against it as such, but I just don't understand why they didn't just do it from the first game if they wanted to, give players the option to make their character gay if they wanted, or bisexual, or whatever. So that's just my perspective about it. If you can compare it to something like Geralt with Witcher, if they suddenly made him gay in Witcher 2, do you think people would have handled it very well? I don't know. So say there was a different option with Witcher from, Triss or Yennefer or something like that. You could romance Dandelion, or I don't know, anything like that. Some random character that they put in. I don't think people would have taken it very well, because it kind of feels like retconning the character. You're changing the character just to suit a larger demographic of people. So, I don't know. If you have a character that's already predetermined and, they've already got this personality and, sexual orientation is part of your identity. You can't deny that. So I can understand why people are upset about that from that perspective. But if I think about it from a historical perspective, especially seen as this developer likes to claim that the games are historically accurate, or as close as they can be to being historically accurate, it is possible to be a heterosexual male, especially in that time. If you think about the Roman times, and that around 15th century, 14th century, it wasn't uncommon for heterosexual men who were even married to engage in activities of hedonism. Encounters with other men were seen as a means of pleasure, whereas marriage was seen as a means of procreation. So there was a very different perspective back then. It wasn't so clear-cut, heterosexual, bisexual, homosexual, anything like that. You could still consider yourself straight and then engage in orgies and, homosexual behavior, especially if you were the one enacting on those that of a lower status or class, or poorer or younger. That was seen as normal, it's especially with the Romans. Later it became more of a thing as the Catholic Christianity rose up and gained more authoritarian power, and it later became an actual law, the act of buggery. I don't know if you know about that, where it was actually criminalized sodomy and those sort of things were grouped together and seen as heresy against the church. And it was a capital punishment if you were caught. So that was the thing back then. And, if they want to be accurate in this game, they also need to make it that it's not something that's praised or put on a pedestal. If you are going to engage in homosexual relationships, it has to be something that is, potentially shunned by others. That's, if you're caught, you could end up with consequences and that sort of thing. Then that's fine, I guess, from that perspective, because it is possible that it could still be heterosexual and engage in homosexual acts, if you look at it from that perspective, from that time period. So the other issue I want to discuss quickly is the story with a Moor insertion that they've done. Apparently there's a character who's a trader in one of the big cities or something that's black, I don't know, but a person of color. And according to the first game, which was initially criticized for being too white, ironically enough, and Daniel Vavra was defending it, saying there were no black people in this time period there. It was just initially so interesting, the fact that they claimed that there were only white people to cater their game to audiences' expectations of only white people in medieval Europe, when in actual reality, black people, the presence of black people at that time isn't so crazy to actually have it there. So, that's fine, I guess. But then literally the guy defended it so vehemently in 2015 when he was getting criticized by historians and other people about the lack of other colors. It was just all white. Anyway, I think he kind of creates the problems for himself with the defensiveness. That's my own perspective from it. And from reading all the tweets and all that sort of thing, I think if you just keep quiet about it and just let the hate or rumors or whatever fizzle down, it would have been fine. But now responding to people in such a defensive manner does, make people even more worried and more concerned, especially now this whole thing where people are saying, okay, he's Jewish, and then attacking him based on that, and then him responding saying he doesn't talk to Nazis and that sort of thing. It's just not a good discourse to have on Twitter out in the open with people that you potentially want to buy your game. Better just to stay quiet and just ignore people that are haters and that sort of thing, because it just doesn't come across very well if you're so defensive. And that's also the impression I got from reading those tweets. So I've also noticed that a lot of tweets are recently about the pre-order status, because the claims that now less people are pre-ordering and people are refunding their pre-orders and so on. Why are people still pre-ordering games? I don't know. I don't understand it in this day and age, because it's a digital game. Why do you need to pre-order it? There's not a limited amount of copies. You're just overpaying for something, and I don't get it. Just wait for the game to be released. Then take a look at a variety of reviews and sources. Don't just look at the few main big ones. Look at a variety of places for reviews and gameplay videos and that sort of thing. If you're unsure about the game, don't just take things at a face value, and then you might actually save yourself a ton of money and time. But don't pre-order games. Honestly, I don't understand it. The last time I was tempted to pre-order something was Vampire Masquerade: The Bloodlines 2. And you know what happened with Bloodlines 2? They literally they almost cancelled the game altogether. It was in a developer hell. They changed developers. And now it looks like they completely changing the genre of the game altogether. It doesn't look very much like an RPG to me anymore. It looks more like a adventure story game sort of thing, RPG light. I can't even tell you how much I detest that. So I have very little interest in the game at this point in time. But the point I'm trying to make is, don't pre-order. Anything can go wrong at the last minute. Don't pre-order. Never do it. So if you are unsure about the story with Kingdom Come Deliverance, wait and see for the reviews. Wait and see for the actual game to come out before you make your judgment. I think this thing is a bit overblown, but in the same token, I can actually appreciate why people are upset about it, because the developer and the director, Daniel Vavra, has positioned himself in such a way that he is on this anti-woke hill, but now this game is starting to have some of these suspicious elements that someone might interpret as having more woke elements, and that you don't know until the game's actually released. So I don't think people are wrong to be suspicious of it, but it's worse coming from particularly a developer that's put himself on this hill of being anti-woke. I don't know if you recall the tweet he did about Veilguard that caused some people to get in a little huff about with comparing Veilguard's player count to Kingdom Come Deliverance 1's player count, if I remember correctly, or something like that, and made some people upset. But this was actually quite funny. But, I mean, again, he's put himself in this group and now asking people to be more open-minded when he himself was saying he's this in this grouping himself amongst these group of people. It's very strange. I don't actually get it. But, you know, like I said, go into it with an open mind. Don't just blindly attack or blindly defend. Just wait and see what happens. And if the game comes out great and it's well written, and if it's not done in an obnoxious and annoying way or with the agenda and all that crap in it, then that's fine. Then you guys can buy it with good conscience, knowing that you didn't waste your money. But just wait and see, you know. Jumping on either bandwagon and just going into all this drama is actually not worth the energy at this point. Well, thank you guys for watching my video. I hope it helped. I don't know. You guys must just let me know in the comments what your thoughts are about it. Maybe there's some things that I might have missed that I didn't bring up, but just let me know. It's a very interesting topic to actually talk about. Reading through some of the history with medieval Europe, especially around homosexuality and that sort of thing, was actually very interesting to read about. I had some of an inclination before about it, but for example, with the buggery law, I didn't even know. I mean, bugger is a British slang term, and I'd never, you know, sometimes it's an offensive word I would use, and I didn't actually know what its real meaning was and what its origins were. So it's actually very interesting to read about that and to see that it was rooted in anti-homosexuality law. So I had no idea about that. So definitely have second thoughts about using that word, to be honest now. The whole topic's very interesting, especially with regards to the rise of Christianity and how things have changed so much over the last, say, 500-600 years. And, I mean, up until even recently in the 1980s, homosexuality was still something that was deeply hidden, or actually even more recently than that. But from a medical perspective, it was still considered a mental illness in the DSM. So it was only in the late 80s that they actually took it out, if I remember correctly. So it's been a thing that's been around for a long time that a lot of people had to hide and to avoid judgment and persecution and that sort of thing. So I'm very much not against homosexuality in video games. I actually find it very interesting to explore that sort of thing, especially if it's, you know, it's a role-playing game. Even if you're never going to encounter such a thing in real life, to play as a character that can encounter it in a game, in a fantasy setting, it's fun to do that, you know, to do things you wouldn't otherwise normally do in real life. So I'm definitely not opposed to homosexuality in gaming. The biggest issue I see around this is that it wasn't something that was present from the first game. It was something they're trying to now add in later with other potential elements that we don't know yet what they are. You know, where you see one roach, there might be a whole bunch hidden. Sort of logic applies. So, like I said, you just have to approach this whole story with caution and don't pre-order. If you've pre-ordered and you're convinced this game's going to be great, good for you, then I hope it's going to be great. I'm sure it probably will be a good game. But in general, pre-ordering just doesn't make sense, especially with the way the AAA game industry has been going at the moment. And the other thing was just to not trust any news source or journalism source at face value, because they also have their own agendas. So look at everything from different perspectives. Look at Steam discussion groups or Reddit or whatever. I know the Steam discussion group for Kingdom Come Deliverance 2 is now getting more heavily moderated by Deep Silver. But, I mean, it's better to just look at other people's opinions from a very wide audience, from different sources. And especially once the game is released, look at a variety of opinions if you're unsure if you should buy. Don't just take things at face value or just listen to haters or listen to blind defenders or whatever. Just think for yourself and look at a whole group of opinions before you try and make a decision if you are not sure if you want to waste your money on something that could be a disappointment. So that's essentially the points I'm trying to make with this. I hope you guys enjoyed my video, and I'll see you guys again soon.